Welcome to part 4 question and answer series in elementary logic for first year BA LLB students. This is semester 1 portion. Let us look at how to symbolize general propositions. In symbolic logic, general propositions express relationships between categories or sets using symbols. The process involves translating statements into logical symbols that represent universal, all, every, or existential, some quantifiers. Let us look at the key symbols. Quantifiers are universal quantifier and existential quantifier, represented by mirror E character and mirrored A character and mirrored E character. For all, this means for all, and existential quantifier means there exists some, a few. We can also use variables x, y, z, small letters to represent individuals in the domain, in the set. We use the lowercase characters x, y, and z, the three characters at the end. For predicates, we use uppercase P, Q, R, showing that it represents the properties or relationships. For example, if it is, there will be more examples coming on, but a quick example is like this. For all x, there exists an x which has the property of P. This is a very basic example I'm giving right now. A detailed explanation will follow. Logical connectivities. This stands for negation. Sometimes they use this symbol also. Sometimes they use minus sign also. So this is negation, not. Conjunction is basically the symbol with a and option. So in and, only when both are true, that is, let's say P and Q, means only when both are Q, the value is that the conclusion is true. Otherwise, the conclusion is always false. Even if only P is true and Q is false, then also the conclusion is false. This is how you have to understand this. For disjunction, we use the V character, which stands for or. It is not actually V character, but just to indicate verbally. So this is or symbol. We say P or Q, which means if any one of them is true, the conclusion will be true. If both are false, then it will be false. Otherwise, it will be always true. For example, if P is true, then also the conclusion will be true. If only Q is true and P is false, then also the conclusion is true. If both are true, of course, the conclusion will be true. But if both are false, then the conclusion will be false. Implication. If then. This arrow indicates relation of implication. If P, then Q. This is what it means. We don't even need to write P. If. We can just write P, right-headed arrow, and Q, which means if P, then Q, which is then the conclusion will become true. But the reverse is not possible. If P, then not Q, then it is false. So all of this will cover in detail. Let's look at some of the examples of symbolized general propositions. These will come in the exams. They will tell us to convert or symbolize propositions into we have basically general propositions into symbols. So all humans are mortal. So when we say all, we say, what are these? These are universal quantifiers for all. So we represent it by mirrored A image. So they can also give some equivalent of the all, which we will cover later. What is all stands for, any, and so on. So all humans. So here we have to write it like this. For all x, this stands for all x. If x is a human, because this is a implication. For if x is a human, then x is mortal. Mortal means can die. People who die are mortals. Immortal means you don't die, or the thing doesn't die. Like memories, they don't die. So this implies for all x, if x is a human, x is mortal. Then x is mortal. So this is if then relationship. For the universal quantifiers, we have to use the if then symbol. Second, some students are intelligent. So for some, there exists an x. This is how it is written. This is what it means. Such that till here, x is a student and x is intelligent. This is how you have to write it. So for existential quantifiers, we use the and symbol. And for universal quantifier, we use the implication symbol, that is the right-handed arrow. No lawyers are dishonest. For all x, if x is a lawyer, it implies then x is dishonest. First we have to write x is dishonest. Okay, we have to write x is dishonest first in positive sense, and then use a negation symbol here to state that x, if x is a lawyer, implies x is not dishonest. Again, it's a universal quantifier. We use the implication symbol. Some contracts are void. There exists an x such that, this is what you have to write first. X is a contract and x is void. First you have to write in positive sense, x is void. Here also you have to write x is not dishonest, means x is honest. First you have to write. And then we have to negate it. X is, sorry, this would be correct. This is the correct. Not dishonest means honest. X is a contract and X is void. So we write it in this way. So we have to symbolize these by using appropriate alphabets. Contract stands for C, void stands for V. All crimes are punishable. For all X, if X is a crime, this is X is a crime, then is pointed by the arrow, then PX is, and then X is punishable. Alright, let's try to solve these on our own. All lawyers are professionals. For all lawyers, we use this symbol. Then we write below that for all X, such that for all X, if for lawyers will write it as LX, for example, and for professionals we'll write PX. And at the end we have to write LX stands for X is a lawyer, X is a professional. So we write LX, small x, pointing arrow, and then PX. This is how we symbolize. So for all X, if X are lawyers, then X are professionals. Some judges are impartial. Some stands for existential quantifier. This will be written as for some X, there exists an X such that, start with there exists an X such that, this stands for capital J and X, impartial stands for like IX. There exists JX and impartial X. So this is how we symbolize it. So how do we read this? We read it as for there exists an x, this means there exists an x such that x is a judge, then and x is impartial. We don't need to put a bracket, but we can put a small bracket also at the end. Symbolize no contracts are unenforceable. So this would be contracts and enforceable, and no stands for universal quantifier. So this will be arrow. Now if it was enforceable, no contracts are unenforceable. So means contracts are enforceable. That is, all contracts are enforceable. So then all contracts are enforceable. Now since this is unenforceable, we have used the unenforceable and negated. Alright, let's move forward. Some students do not pass the exam. Once again, some students means there exists an X such that students as X and do not pass the exam. Do not pass the exam. So we can write EX. Let's see the answer later on. So EX would be there exists an X such that SX and XX and EX. Should it be negated here? Let's check the answer. Yes, it should have been negated here. Pass the exam, do not pass the exam. So we say pass the exam and do not pass the exam. Next, symbolize all laws are enforceable. So this is in positive, universal positive. So all, for all x implies they are enforceable. For all x are laws, then it implies if x are laws, then x are enforceable. Of course, we put a small bracket here. We don't have to put a bracket here at the starting point. Alright. Next is some witnesses are unreliable. Now this is talking in a negative sense. So some witnesses. So some witnesses means there exists an act such that witnesses, there exists an act such that if not if the X is a witness and X is unreliable, so we can write reliable and then negate it, unreliable. Let's see the answer. They have directly put unreliable. We can say reliable also, X is reliable, and then negate it, X is unreliable. Let me know if we can use this way also, because I'm also learning along with you. Because I've seen this way it's written in many places. Symbolize no acts of negligence are intentional. So this is universal negative. So no acts means for all x. no acts of negligence are intentional. So if this has to be, this is universal negative, and if it has to be moved into universal positive, we say all, this is converse we have to do, right? So the converse will be, not the converse, this will be no acts of negligence are intentional. So all acts of negligence are unintentional. So all acts, for all acts, negligence would be an X and unintentional. No acts, for all acts of negligence would, I'm just writing it, stating it in this way. All acts of negligence are unintentional. For all X, there exist acts of negligence. So negligence basically is not intentional. That is what they are saying. Okay, let's look at the answer. So it's negated. It's not intentional. All evidence is admissible or excluded. Now this is a little complicated. So evidence would be EX. All evidence is admissible implies that it is admissible or excluded. So I think we can write EV and excluded and then small x. And all evidence would be, for all evidence, if x is an evidence, then it implies that x is admissible or x is excluded. Admissible or x is excluded. We don't need to specifically use the e and x. We can use other symbols also, not necessarily that we have to use x. We can state that for evidence we are using EV for evidence and EX for excluded. Some contracts are both valid and enforceable. So we are using AND means this symbol, valid means VX, enforceable means EX. Some contracts would be CX and some will be existential, EX. For there exists an X such that if X is a contract, then it implies that the contract is valid and contract is enforceable. Some contracts are both valid and enforceable. This we'll have to check. Contract is enforceable and some contracts are both enforceable and valid. This I'll have to recheck again. Let me know why they have used the AND symbol here instead of implication. If an act is lawful, then it is not punishable. So this is an if and then statement. So if an act is lawful, so lawful we can say LX, then implies X is punishable. That is, act is punishable. If an act is lawful, so X is act. If act is lawful, then it implies it is not punishable. So we have to use negation symbol. So why have they used the universal quantifier? For all x, okay, so this is to be understood here, this one as well. So this will be more clear when we look at all the substitutes for universal quantifier and as well as for particular quantifiers or existential quantifiers. All words that can be substituted for that. Alright. Now what are quantifiers? It represents generality or existence. Predicates use meaningful symbols to express the subject or property. Logical connectivities helps express relationships clearly. Alright, so this completes this particular part of symbolizing general propositions. Thank you very much. I hope this video was helpful to you. Do comment and let me know the errors that we found in this video and what it means. Uh, Thank you very much for staying around. Do share, like, subscribe as usual. Goodbye.